Before the Queen, before Prime Suspect, even before Excalibur, there was Caligula. And at the heart of it all, a young Helen Mirren confidently walking onto one of the most chaotic, controversial, and downright surreal film sets in movie history. While nearly everyone involved eventually distanced themselves from the finished product, Dame Helen has never once looked back in regret. Quite the opposite, in fact. She's proud of her role in a movie that some critics called a cinematic dumpster fire. But how on earth did one of the most respected actresses of our time end up starring in a film that was banned in multiple countries, seized by customs, sued over, and disowned by both its screenwriter and its director? To answer that, we have to go back to 1976, when acclaimed writer Gore Vidal was approached to pen a script about the infamous Roman Emperor Caligula. Vidal's take was bold, a political parable showing how absolute power corrupts absolutely. He painted Caligula as a man driven mad not by genetics, but by the iron weight of unchecked imperial authority. At its heart, Vidal's Caligula was meant to be a cautionary tale, Rome as a metaphor for the 20th century, decadence as decline. But then enter Bob Guccione. Yes, that Bob Guccione, the founder of Penthouse magazine. Guccione had helped finance Chinatown, The Longest Yard, and The Day of the Locust, but now he wanted to produce something himself, something bigger, louder, explicit. And what better vehicle than a Roman epic brimming with orgies, corruption, incest, and assassination? Guccione agreed to fund Vidal's script, but with some conditions. For one, he demanded rewrites that toned down the gay content and added more heteronormative sex. Then he hired controversial Italian director Tinto Brass, whose previous film Salon Kitty was already pushing boundaries with Nazi-themed erotica. Brass, however, wasn't just in it for the shock factor. He envisioned Caligula as a subversive black comedy, a biting satire of authoritarianism disguised as a historical drama. His Caligula wasn't a good man gone mad. He was a born monster with a divine ego and zero impulse control. Casting began, and it was bizarrely prestigious. Malcolm McDowell, still riding high from A Clockwork Orange, took the lead. Peter O'Toole signed on as the syphilitic Emperor Tiberius. Sir John Gielgud, the knighted stage legend, agreed to play Nerva. And then there was Helen Mirren, cast as Caesonia, Caligula's wild, sensuous, and politically savvy wife. A woman described by Roman historians as the most promiscuous woman in all of Rome. And Mirren, she was all in. Shooting began in Rome's Deer Studios in 1976. And immediately, things got weird. The sets were colossal, under the vision of art director Danilo Donati, who had previously worked with Fellini. More than 3,500 costumes were created, 5,000 handmade sandals were worn, and wigs were assembled from over 1,000 pounds of human hair. One full-scale Roman ship was built with 120 hand-carved oars. It was longer than a football field and stood 30 feet tall. The props budget alone could have funded a small country. But behind the grandeur, chaos reigned. Gore Vidal had already clashed with Tinto Brass over the direction of the story. Brass wanted more visual surrealism, more grotesquerie, more symbolic sex. Vidal gave an interview calling directors parasites, and Brass promptly had him kicked off set. Brass later called Vidal's script the work of an aging arteriosclerotic, and Vidal filed a lawsuit to get his name removed. So much for teamwork. Then there was Peter O'Toole. According to co-star Malcolm McDowell, O'Toole was rarely sober during filming. He allegedly chain-smoked joints from a cigarette holder and once shouted to John Gielgud, "Hello, Johnny? What is a Knight of the Realm doing in a porno movie?" Despite the absurdity, Helen Mirren took the madness in stride. She later described the shoot as being like a nudist camp, where everyone was naked so no one felt self-conscious. "It was the era," she said. "It seemed to be nothing to get your knickers in a twist over." But make no mistake, Mirren was no pushover. When asked later about the hardcore inserts Guccione added after filming, she admitted she was taken aback. But she still stands by her performance and the artistic ambitions behind the project. Then came the real twist. After Brass had shot enough footage to make Ben-Hur 50 times over, he was fired. Guccione and his associate Giancarlo Louis snuck into the studio at night with penthouse models, filming unsimulated sex scenes to splice into the movie. Neither Brass nor the main cast knew. The final cut, released in 1979 in Italy and 1980 in the US, was a Frankenstein's monster of mismatched tones: historical drama, political satire, psychosexual horror, and straight-up adult film. Some scenes were so bizarre they've passed into Hollywood legend. In one, Mirren's character gives birth on camera, a moment so convincingly graphic that rumors swirled it was an actual birth. It wasn't. But 3 real pregnant extras were filmed in succession, with real doctors in Roman garb standing by to ensure safety. That's how committed the production was to blurring the line between fiction and spectacle. In another infamous moment, Caligula walks into a banquet, fully cloaked in gold leaf, and announces that the senators' wives will now serve as state prostitutes. Later, he buries noblemen up to their necks and drives a chariot over their heads. Scenes like this made the movie unforgettable, but not in the way the creators hoped. Critics were not kind. Roger Ebert walked out after 2 hours, calling it sickening, utterly worthless, shameful trash. Variety called it a moral holocaust. The Globe and Mail's J. Scott said it didn't work on any level. Despite this, audiences were curious. In New York City, people lined up around the block to see what the fuss was about, paying a then unheard of $7.50 a ticket, almost triple the average movie price. Guccione even rented and rebranded a theater as the Penthouse East just to screen the film. And the controversy didn't stop there. In 2023, Caligula, the ultimate cut, premiered at Cannes. Historian Thomas Negovan spent years sifting through 90 hours of unused footage, restoring the movie into something closer to what Vidal and Brass had originally imagined. The result? A 178-minute epic that strips out Guccione's explicit inserts, restores lost dialogue, and lets the performances breathe. Malcolm McDowell praised the cut, saying it finally brought one of my best performances to light. And critics agreed. The new version received far better reviews than the original. Do you think Caligula was ahead of its time? A misunderstood masterpiece? Or just a notorious footnote in cinema history? And what do you think of Helen Mirren's fearless performance? Trailblazing or just plain bonkers? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We're dying to know where you stand in the empire of opinions.